Live from Mount Shasta. It's the Toltec Discussions Show. So, what do you want to talk about?
The Tonal.
The Tonal? Okay. Do you remember the definition of the Tonal?
Everything that is known or knowable.
There you go. And what's one of the little pieces of the great work that the Toltecs do?
Advance consciousness for the benefit of humanity.
Well, that's a ding. But I was thinking with respect to the Tonal, we're trying to push the limits, push the boundary to extend what is known and or knowable. You know, because what else are you going to do in your spare time?
Take over the universe.
Well, you know, this is a step on the way. You know? It's a step on the way.
Okay. Patty's online.
Oh, okay. Patricia online, she was supposed to be here.
Well, she's here.
We miss you. So, anyone else online yet?
We have Mohadib,
Wadid.
Scott Hicks,
Scott, hi.
Patty.
So we have Patty, Patricia, and Patty,
Yeah.
and Scott, and Wadid.
Right.
Okay, so far. All right. So,
Dennis Brown just checked in.
hey, Mr.
Oh,
Brown.
he's up in Portland.
Oh, you're in Portlandia. Well, Dennis, thank you for tuning in from Portlandia. We have 2 people in Oregon online tonight. Wow. We're international.
2 people from Portland?
From Oregon.
Oh.
There's a difference.
Scott, right. Okay.
Scott is
Yep.
in Oregon.
Okay.
Portlandia is still in Oregon until the southern half of Oregon secedes to become Jefferson. Along with the northern portion of California.
And then Lonnie is with us.
Lonnie, good to hear from you. Good to hear from you. So, the announcement about today's discussion, I always try to put something in there that's unique to what we're talking about today. And so I put out a cartoon that shows a devil checking at a reception desks, and he says, "I'm here about the details." And the only comment I got back today was, "Huh?" So I would have assumed that everybody here on Earth knew the famous Earth expression, "The devil's in the details," right? Because, you know, you're from Earth, or at least you're living on Earth. I don't know if you're from Earth. You, I know, are not.
Well, I didn't just say, huh. I actually said, I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but publicly anyway. But since you brought up your ignorance, there is a famous Earth expression that says the devil is in the details. And let's talk about that because it's important for tonight. So, how many people, and let's get a poll of the online audience, how many of you have ever been bitten by a hippopotamus? So, there's 4 or 5 people online. I need a yes or no from each of you. And we'll go on once I get the yes or the no in the chat. How many have been bitten by a hippopotamus? You know what a hippopotamus is, right? It's a big semi-aquatic mammal native to the continent of Africa. Lives in rivers and lakes, and it's vegetarian for the most part, and until you get too close, especially to its offspring. Now this famous question of how many of you have been bitten by the hippopotamus, how many we got, how many answers?
Well, we had 4 people weigh in, and they all said no.
No. You've never been bitten by a hippopotamus. Okay. How many of you have ever been bitten by a dog? A A dog. That's the next question for everybody online. That sounds like we've got some late coming arrivals here, so we'll poll them as well.
I don't know if I've ever been bitten. I've been afraid that one might bite me. But
Yeah. Anybody online yet?
Let's see. Pamela's here. She says yes.
Okay.
Mohab D says yes. Patty says no. Dennis says yes.
Okay.
Lonnie says yes. I say I don't think so,
Yeah.
but it could have happened. And have you ever been bitten by a dog?
Yes.
Yes.
Have
Lily
you ever been
says
bitten by a hippopotamus?
No.
Okay. So hippopotamus is universally no. Dog is mixed, some yes, some no. And how many have ever been bitten by a mosquito?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. See how many people weigh in and say yes.
Mohadib, yes.
Wajib, okay, that makes sense.
Patty C, yes.
Patty says yes. I can see that might happen.
Dennis Brown, yes.
Yes.
Pamela says yes,
Yeah.
and that mosquito was as large as a hippo.
She must have been in Alaska or
No.
northern Washington
Or Mexico.
or the jungle somewhere. Now, Florida mosquitoes were so big we didn't even call them mosquitoes when I
Right.
lived there. So they were more like crow-sized bloodsuckers. I don't know what it's called. But, went with the house-sized cockroaches, bigger than a Volkswagen Beetle. So hippo is universal no, dog is a few, and mosquitoes is everybody. So that just proves my point.
That.
It's the little things that get you.
Yeah. And mosquitoes are very annoying.
Yeah. So when I say the devil is in the details,
Yep.
it's the little things that get you, right? So you're trying to do something big, grand, and glorious, and you get excited, you forget about the details. Things tend to blow up in your face. Sometimes literally, sometimes the yogurt explodes all over the ceiling of the kitchen because you didn't pay attention to the details of the recipe on how to produce yogurt.
I'm
Or
never
you-
gonna live that one down.
Or you
Why?
drop a full-size cottage cheese container and it's exorcism all over the wall.
Yeah, there you go.
And windows.
Yeah. So when I say things blow up in your face, I've actually had that happen. That was not a good day at work, watching space shuttles blow up in my face when I had literally been one of the last 10 people to approve the launch. That was not a fun day. But it was the little things that get you, like ignoring all the data that says there's a problem and ignoring that for 3 years and trying to cover it up, hoping it doesn't come back to bite you in the rear end. And that's what NASA upper management did for the Space Shuttle Challenger, for those of you who don't know my background thoroughly. I was in the control room for that launch. So the devil is in the details, meaning that if you ignore details, bad things happen. There's a devil hiding in the details. And if you want to be successful at anything, you get to a point where you have to pay attention to the details. Anybody new online? I didn't officially welcome you, Pamela, but welcome.
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so why am I telling you this?
Pay attention to the details because that's how we learn how to navigate the Tonal.
That's a good answer.
And watch the little things.
Yeah, the little things are the details. That's what I'm talking about. The little detail equals little thing. Okay, little thing equals details. And you can flip the equation like this because algebra tells us that it's the same. And we can mathematically prove that. I could get the whiteboard out if anybody's confused by that. Go back through your 9th grade algebra class. So this is based on a theoretical query, or a query about how to morph this theoretical knowledge and understanding of the tonal into usable action, right? Because it's not enough to be the dreamer and say, gee, look at what's possible. It's not enough to be a stalker and say, oh yeah, we could do this and then this and then this and then this. You get it all planned out, at least at the big picture level. You have to take action. We're here to make universes. We're here to upgrade consciences, consciousnesses. And eventually the warrior has to kick in and you have to actually do something. What this boils down to is we have to upgrade the level of detail in our intent. Right? So this is where studying mahjong or chess would help, right? Because you have to plan more than one step ahead. And the way we do that, or the way I won't claim this is the only way. I won't claim it's the only Toltec way, but I am claiming it's a very good way that will work. And if you haven't tried it yet, you need to try this, what we're going to be talking about tonight, so that you give it a fair shot, right? You have to fine-tune your thoughts moment by moment. One way to do that is moment by moment, every time you think of it, you need to ask yourself the question, what am I thinking about? And the flip side corollary, the other side of this coin is, why am I thinking about it?
Can you repeat that, please? The coin thing?
The first side is every day, moment by moment, continually be asking yourself, what am I thinking about? And the flip side, the corollary question is, why am I thinking about it? And you're going to weigh the answer against the intent you hold for what you had intended to be doing at that moment, and therefore what you had intended to be thinking about. This is kind of as we spiral up our consciousness ladder, this is how we start to have closer control over deliberate action. This is the feedback we need from ourselves about, are you being effective at what you had intended to be doing? If your intent is I'm going to make yogurt, and you get in the middle of making yogurt, and you start planning the pie you're going to make for dinner, and then you start planning what you're going to do the next day, and the next day, and then you don't remember, did I already add the kefir in the whey? I better add some more, right? And then boom. If your intent is you're going to go out and you're going to run a chainsaw and you're going to cut firewood so your family doesn't freeze this winter, I think your cat is out of control.
They're your cats.
I saw the white one skidding under the curtain. That one's yours when she's out of control. See what I have to put up with? And you're out trying to cut wood and you're thinking about something else and all of a sudden you go zoop and you're like, oops. Bad things can happen, right? This is how we start filtering out the wandering mind. This is how you are going to gradually start reducing the distractions and keep your attention on what you had set an intent that you were going to keep it on. I'm very carefully not using the word what you're supposed to be doing because no one gets to tell you that, right? You are the master of your universe. You're the one who sets your intent, day by day, moment by moment. If you happen to align that intent with others working in a group setting, then you have chosen that. That is now your intent. You're working in a group, maybe you're down with Coyote and his peeps, and you're building the medicine wheel. But your mind's wandering. You're going to do sloppy work and it won't hold the right energy. As an example, if you're out harvesting and processing herbs, but your mind's wandering, thinking about race cars or whatever, the energy and the healing capabilities of the medicine that those herbs eventually produce isn't going to be as good as if you engaged with the plant, held your attention on the intent you had set yourself, which is, I am going to go out, I'm going to ask which plant, parts of which plants want to come along and be made into medicine. And you put all your energy and attention into that. You turned on your akadwa, you're making herbs. You're making an herbal potion, you're making an herbal tea, you're making herbal sap, whatever it may be, right? You need to hold that intent. You chose it, so it's your intent. Nobody else around you is going to know what you're thinking. We might guess at times that you're not thinking about the job at hand, but we won't know what you are thinking about. You know, when you go to cut off some herbs and you miss and get a finger instead, we kind of go, well, I don't think she was had her attention on the job at hand. This is a higher level, finer tuned detail of how you impose your self-discipline on yourself. So wandering mind throat.
Enough of what?
I got a big ball of ginger or something.
Oh.
So if your mind is wandering to random thoughts, I mean, this is basic meditation instruction 101, is as soon as you realize your mind has wandered, bring it back. If you're meditating on an object like a candle or a rock or whatever, you bring it back. Or you bring it back to whatever inner space you're communing with, because ultimately teaching you to meditate on a candle is just a stepping stone to getting you to tune out the outside world and go inward, because that's how you will ultimately commune with your holy guardian angel. When you are focused on an intent that is in alignment with your true will, and all of a sudden you find yourself, you've wandered to a curious subject. Maybe it's not directly related to what you're doing, but it's not totally unrelated. But why am I thinking about that? So you note it and you come back to what you were doing. And then 15, 20, 30 minutes later, you suddenly realize your mind keeps wandering back to the same subject. Anybody ever have that?
Yep.
That is sometimes a way that we receive inspiration. Right? You're communing with your holy guardian angel, maybe you're communing with your higher self, your essence, a spirit guide, God. Somebody is trying to get a message through to you. And it's a lot easier when the clutter's out of the way, mentally, and physically too. That's why we clean before we do these broadcasts. Because I'm pulling in energy and I don't want anything in here that really doesn't need to be here. Like those cats that are out of control. Well, they're good for a laugh, right? Fun is a frequency that kind of enhances things. But as long as they don't break anything and knock over cameras, I think we're good. So when you've, at different times of the day, several days in a row, you find your mind you find yourself coming back and the same information starts rearing its head and saying, hey, what about me? Note it, okay? Journal it. It might be useful information in the not too distant future for you. But one of the keys is you, yourself, are going to be the one who has to discern whether that was a distraction or whether it was an inspired message. And how do you do that?
Well, I think what you had said initially was, what are you thinking about and why? So it's kind of the why part that I'm thinking of. I can't make this go on me. Anyway.
You turn off the top two,
I know.
and then the other next one down it says built-in camera needs to be on.
No, I'm not getting it to do anything. There I am.
Very.
Ta-da! Just keep clicking on things until something happens. Right? Anyway, you said, what are we thinking about and why? So that why could come in handy in the discernment of, okay, is this just, why do I keep thinking about driving up the mountain? And well, this is the third time it's come to me. Maybe I should pay attention to that. So it's like, well, why? Why is that coming to me? And that sometimes will trigger some of that. The other thing I wanted to mention is you were talking about going direct, and some of the language you were using makes me think that this is all in my head. But I have found some benefit lately in my meditations to trying to be more present in the space. So that's extending that sphere of influence outside of self, And I find that as I find myself being present in the space, more stuff can come through.
Right. Good observation, because I'm going there in a little bit.
Okay.
Or similar to there. Now you're back on me?
Well, I got a little legal there. Okay. All right.
Now you're on me.
Yep.
Okay. See, that was a little easy.
Nope. Oh, it's just the time lapse. I looked at the other one. I was still on there, but
Okay.
it should be gone by now.
So this process I'm talking about, this self-check on what you're thinking about and why you're thinking about it, and course corrections to get back in alignment with the intent that you set yourself. This is starting to convert your spiritual practice, maybe if you're doing well, from an hour or two a day. I'm going to go off and I'm going to be spiritual, so I'll meditate and I'll journal. Maybe I'll do some inspired art, and then now I'll go off and I'll have my life. And that's how a lot of people run their spiritual lives. Is they go do spiritual for an hour or two, then they turn off spiritual, and then they go do their life. They go to work, they have a job, they play with their kids, they go out to eat, they watch TV, they drink beer, they go to the sitcoms, whatever, right? They go see the talkies.
The football.
Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is for anybody truly on a higher spiritual path, is that may be how we start it. I'll do 15 minutes a day of spiritual, and it's an hour, and then it's 2 hours. That's how most people start. And what I'm telling you is it needs to become your spiritual work, your spiritual life, your spiritual strivings need to become a 24/7 activity. No, you don't get the nighttime off when you're sleeping, because then you're working in the dreaming. And over time you become more and more aware of the work you're doing in the dreaming. And you have to use the same rule there. You're in the dreaming. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? What am I thinking about while you're in the dreaming? So your spiritual work, your spiritual life gets expanded throughout the day. And the way we accomplish that is we start making better use of our energy bodies, our higher bodies. First the etheric, then the astral, then there's more bodies beyond that. But right now we'll talk about what this physical body is doing, and then we'll talk about, we start moving into the etheric and the astral. Now the etheric body is sometimes referred to as an attention body. Attention with an A, not intention with an I. So you're developing and nurturing this greater self-awareness of your thoughts, and you consciously choose what thoughts you're going to think. You're going to consciously be choosing to activate and use your etheric body, also known as your dreaming body. also known as your attention body. And that is what we can spread throughout a room, throughout a much wider area if necessary. That we can send out more as a spotlight or a laser beam to a specific place if necessary. So this moment by moment query you ask yourself, what am I thinking and why? That goes hand in hand with the notion that you should be having an intent that you're working on. Yeah.
So it seems like you could expand thinking to also doing, because you might be thinking one thing and doing another.
Right.
And in which case both need to be questioned as
Which precedes the other usually. Usually
you should be thinking about what you're doing.
Right, but usually you think about it first, then you do it.
Right, but often when we spin off and aren't doing what we're supposed to be doing, there's something, it's maybe subconscious, that's driving us. Like when you find yourself standing in front of the refrigerator and you weren't even hungry and that was not your intent, and somehow that's where you ended up.
And then you go, what am I looking for?
Right.
So whose thoughts walked the machine out there to the refrigerator?
I mean, that seems like either subconscious or more machine programming.
It's machine programming. it's the mind of the machine.
What if, you know how you ask yourself, why am I thinking that thought? What if the why gets you going, detours your intention with the I a bit, because then the monkey mind kicks in a little bit.
Yeah, well, kick the monkey mind in the butt and get back to your intent.
Okay.
Right? That part's still true. The key is learning to tighten the control loop, the feedback loop, right?
Okay.
Right? You don't wait hours or days before you feedback and say, gosh, what did I do today? You start doing this, you know, if it's once a day, now get it down to once an hour, and then you get it down to once every 5 minutes, then once a minute, then constantly self-assessing, am I doing what I intended to be doing? Which means you had to know what you intended to be doing, which means you first had to set an intent.
I mean, it's when you're focused on what you're doing, I think that what her point was is that alone can interrupt your process of doing what you're doing. So if you're successfully doing what you're doing, it seems like you should be engaged in that.
Well, yeah, you're right, but it doesn't have to take a long time. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're thinking about it, and periodically you go, am I doing what? Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Well, that's just
A
like,
second, if that.
sorry to interrupt, but that's just like the exercise when we're both reading two
Yeah.
sets of couples are reading, and my intent is to read to the Voyager, and there was a little detour that happened and I had to bring myself back.
Yeah.
But how long did that take you on a
Not
stopwatch?
very long.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. So if you're, and there's a learning curve here. I'm not saying you go from never thinking about it to having it perfect overnight. This takes all of us years to get this down.
So it's all about engagement with the process.
Right.
Instead of being an unconscious participant and just along for the ride, you're really engaged
Right.
with what you're doing with intention.
Yeah.
And attention with the A.
Yeah. You need the I tension and the A tension.
Right.
You need both of them. Both tensions.
Right.
And, you know, we need that tension, that friction, right, to drive us.
So that's the bit of the chronic to get you in the forge of your thoughts.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with the way you used chronic.
Okay.
Chronic is the barrier. That's the shock wave we're trying to push through
Okay.
to wake up,
Okay.
right? So the forge is a little different, the way I think of it, right? You're putting yourself in the fire and you're doing all this stuff to transform you, to get you ready to deal with your chronic and move beyond.
Okay.
They're related, certainly. But do you see the subtle difference?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any comments online on this?
Mohadib says that she's been questioning her thoughts like that for over 10 years, asking why just pulls you out of the monkey mind and gets you back on track.
Good for you. Not everybody does this.
And Aaron's with us.
Oh, hi, Aaron. Welcome. First, we have to ask Aaron a question.
Oh.
Aaron, and just type in the chat, have you ever been bitten by a hippopotamus? We'll wait.
And what if he said yes?
Right? I'm sure that somebody has, right?
Well, did I tell you the hippopotamus bitten by story?
No.
Okay. The first time I heard this was in some kind of management training. Way back. 20 years ago at least. And more than that, maybe pushing 30 years. And one of the people in the class had a best friend who was working a different shift. This is when I was still down at Kennedy Space Center, right, working there. And that guy got bitten by a hippopotamus. Literally, he was doing one of those adventure things in Africa, and he was with some people. They were going down a river in canoes. And apparently, in that part of whatever country they were in, there's a place where you don't go there because that's where the hippos live. And the hippos can get very defensive, and they have these huge tusks, which aren't for eating food, they're for fighting over mates and defending, their territory and their offspring. And everybody who lives in hippo country knows that, despite the reputation of rhinos as being big and vicious, and you don't want to monkey with rhinos, and the Cape buffalo as being the worst land animal, even more so than lions, everybody knows the one thing you don't want mad at you is a hippo.
Mm-hmm.
So they got too close. A hippo turned over a canoe and bit this guy in the thigh.
Ow.
Those tusks went just like right through the leg, right?
Oh, wow.
He somehow got away and was able to swim to shore. And there's all these people watching. Nobody was going to go in and help him. It's like, no. Then later he learned, once he got to shore, they would help him, right? And I don't know if he got any of this stuff out of the canoe back or what the deal was. But he ended up in a hospital and got patched up and then ended up back. He was working at the Space Center, right? And so this buddy of mine knew the guy who'd been bitten by a hippo. And so in all the years I've used this in different stories, that's like the closest I've come to having. So I know of somebody who knew somebody who got bit by a hippo.
Well, supposedly they're the most dangerous animal.
Pretty much. That's what I was trying to imply. So what was Aaron's answer?
No bite. He says cats, dogs, birds, and gravity, but no hippopotamus.
Gravity, yeah, that one, that really sucks.
Right.
But what about mosquitoes? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes, he's been bitten by a mosquito. So if you rewatch the beginning of this later, Aaron, the premise of the question tonight is the devil is in the details, and the details are all the little things, and it's the little things that get you. It's not those big hippos very often. It's the mosquitoes. Or the tsetse flies. If you're in Africa, it could be the tsetse flies.
or midges if you're in Scotland.
Yes.
What's that?
You can't even see them. They're so small, but they hurt and they create a little bite. Oh, and what are those fire ants? Those aren't.
Yeah, fire. The closest thing we have to a midge over here is something we call a no-see-em.
Mm-hmm.
These little tiny, they'll land and bite, and there'll be swarms of them. And oh yeah. So did you see the movie The Lord of the Rings? You're fired. Go watch it.
Okay.
You're fired.
We'll have to have a movie night sometime soon. Anyway, welcome, Aaron. So this upgrading of our control loop. We need tight hysteresis. Any other control engineers in the audience? Online control system engineers, you know what hysteresis is? Okay. How frequently you measure where you're at compared to where you're supposed to be. That's hysteresis. So when you get good at doing this automatically, that's your goal, is to be doing this automatically, constantly. What am I doing? What am I thinking? Why? How does that compare to what I intended to be doing right now? What does it compare to what I intended to be thinking right now? And hopefully you're thinking about what you're doing. Now, yeah, when you're driving and we get into the second attention, I'm not going to go there tonight. First attention is what I'm talking about. So the goal is for this process to be automatic, and that shift, when you're doing that most of the time, it's like there's this improvement, all of a sudden it'll shoot up, and you're going to be at a new plateau of performance. Question. I
was just gonna say that when you're trying to do this, when you're already trying to do something, it can get mixed up. But I think one of the times that you see it the most is when we're doing some of the consciousness exercises, like contact or the God posture, where you have an intent to be focusing your eyes on one point, seeing the whole room, and then checking your posture.
Right.
And you keep going between those, and there shouldn't be anything else interfering with that. And
right.
Yet you'll see then very clearly how often our mind gets sucked off into la la land. Right.
Mind suck.
Yeah.
Mind grabbing. It sucks your mind right out of it. So this is basically taking that same skill that we use in introductory exercises, like the God posture, like the contact exercise, and start applying it to everything. This is why the ancients say everything can be a spiritual act, if you're doing it with the intent that it be a spiritual act. The intent that, what the heck are you doing day by day? And does that serve your true will? Does it serve you finding the skills to find your true will? I've known a handful of people who were handed on a silver platter their true will without having to try to remember it. And almost without fail, they ignored it. They threw it, I'm not going to do that. Well, God, they talked to God. God wants them to do this. Nah. I was so blown away. Now I've seen it a few times. It doesn't blow me away.
Why do people do that?
I don't know. I really don't know. From the first time to all the other times I've seen it, I don't know.
That's crazy.
I think on one hand, there's both a fear factor and a really stubborn streak that nobody's going to make me do something that I don't want to do. And I think that's probably one of the key factors on your path is to realize that everything is a choice, but if you, it's like if I wanna be a doctor, I can't be resentful that I have to go through medical school and do all of that training. I have to embrace it, that this is what I want, so this is what I'm gonna do.
This is my path,
It's a
I need to
choice.
do it, yeah.
Right. Having done that path, yeah, it's, you know, you spend long hours in the lab, you spend long hours in the library, you spend a lot of time reading. Your average textbook is this thick. I got a whole room full of them. Come on over, you can borrow and read them. I don't let them go out, but you can come read them. And I knew people in medical school who rebelled against having to do that. You know, I didn't. But fill in the blank on what your intent is, whether it's to be a fashion designer or a caregiver or a doctor or an engineer or a burger flipper. And I'm not saying that disparagingly. When I go out on the grill and I make burgers, I make some darn good burgers, right?
Right?
I even have a burger named
I
after
wanna
me.
see.
Okay, well you have to be over here for dinner sometime.
Oh, okay.
I have a burger named after me, Arlen Burgers and Arlen Fries.
And he has his own burger flipper too.
Well, not everyone can say that.
Yeah. I do basically what she does when she's cooking these intentional meals, is I'm gonna cook it and I make the burger patties and I season them and I
Intentional patties.
yeah, absolutely. And so if you're gonna flip burgers, do it well.
And you're
Right.
not talking well done.
No, medium rare. Medium rare.
And when you go out on the road, you want a good burger, you want a good burger flipper.
Right. When I'm out on the road, I don't want swill. I don't want stuff that if you throw it out with a pig slop, the pigs will turn their nose up at it. Don't even waste my time. No, if you're gonna do a job, do it well.
Patty says she's an intentional Patty.
That's a good one.
Does that mean I'm supposed to throw her on the grill?
Right. Just
and
season
flip
her
her
well.
over? You know, we can go cannibalism if you want, but I wasn't planning on that.
I'm
this
sure
week.
you flipped her a few times.
Well, I'm sure she flipped me off, probably. You know,
I was
it's
waiting for
always-
that one.
It's always the teacher
She-
who gets the blame.
She did
right?
it with intention.
Yeah, it's always the teacher who gets the anger directed at us and gets the blame directed at us and gets the finger directed at us because, you know, it's my fault that I pushed the hot button that she came to me to have pushed. Right?
Right.
And everybody in this room, I could say the same thing about. So, I alluded to it a moment ago, but this process is part of how we bring a stronger link between our conscious mind and the mind of our higher bodies, right? We extend our attention, we extend our etheric body, we fill the space with our awareness, with our intent, with our focus. And then the next step of that is we start deliberately and consciously using the higher minds associated with the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, and so on, and we start using them in our thought process.
How do you know when you're tapped into one of those minds?
Experience.
One would be to do it with intent. So if
Yeah, you start intending to do it, you know, and it's sort of like when over the last year, where I've intended to improve my ability with art. You don't want to see the first attempts, right? The ones I showed you at winter solstice were some of the better stuff. The other stuff you don't want to see, right? Because it sucked. It's like, there was a reason a few days ago, you're not on Facebook, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, But I posted this thing that said, "Be brave enough to suck at something new."
There you go. I like that saying.
See what you're missing by not being on Facebook? And so that's kind of what I've done with art over the last year. I am not a natural artist. I not have your ability. I don't have your ability. I've had to work at it, right? I took the left brain approach to activating my right brain. Because when you only have a left brain, that's the only thing you've got to activate the right brain.
Try doing art with your other hand.
I've done that. I write sometimes with my other hand. In fact, I've even tried doing Da Vinci writing, where it's mirror image, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm writing with my right hand, I go this way, and with the left hand, Da Vinci went that way. And so you want to read Da Vinci's original notebook, you got to hold them up next to a mirror. Then you can read them. If you can read Latin in bad handwriting. I have a version of his notebooks. They're making a big deal. Like just recently I saw about the Da Vinci notebooks are now online. Well, I've had a print copy for 20 years or more. Maybe more. Maybe 30. Amazing stuff.
Did you hold it up in the mirror?
Yeah, but again, it's in Latin and bad handwriting, so I just read the English translation. Which there is an English translation. So, yeah, I don't read. I can get words. I mean, I'm not unskilled in sounding out Latin.
Well, you know a lot of medical terms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And science
medical
terms.
terminology and other esoteric terminology.
And herbs in the Latin words.
Right. QED, everybody knows QED, right? Quo erat demonstratum. Thus it is proven. That's, you see at the end of physics proofs, mathematical problem, QED, blah, right? You get down to that bottom line. QED, quo erat demonstratum. See, there's Latin for you. But am I fluent? You pick me up and put me down in the Roman Senate back in the day. I'm not fluent enough to carry on a conversation. I could not probably go into one of their restaurants and order lunch without getting the wrong thing served.
Or you would be taking heads and putting them on spikes.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And
I
it's like
have
a gladiator.
yeah. I don't know why you assume that.
Because that's something you would be
Just
really
because
good
I had
at
a great
in
great
Rome.
grandfather who did that. It's many greats. It goes back to Alaric, king of the Visigoths, who led the first barbarian horde to sack Rome. He's an ancestor. Great grandpa Alaric, I call him now. But back to the subject at hand. So we're going to start using that. Oh, you had asked, how do you know you're using the higher mind? Is experience, right? Now, your good judgment comes from experience, and as they say, your experience comes from bad judgment. Right? You learn things the hard way, and then you learn. Now you know how to do it. But you
Or not do it.
right, yeah. And hopefully you're smart enough to be able to learn from the mistakes of others.
Mm-hmm.
I've never jumped off a 100-story skyscraper without a parachute before. I don't need that lesson firsthand. There's a joke that people are up on the top of a skyscraper and there's people sitting at the bar and one guy starts telling the other, you know, that there's a wind current on this skyscraper, and if you jump out and hold this position, you'll stay right there, and the wind will keep you up, and then you can just reach out and come back in. They're, oh, you're full of it. You know, so I watch. So he goes over, he steps backwards off, and he's just hovering right there. You see the wind, and come back in. You try it. And so This other guy gets up there and steps off and splat, 50 stories down, kills himself. And the bartender shakes his head and looks at him and goes, "Man, Superman, you can be a mean drunk." Not even a laugh.
Better laugh or we'll have to stay late.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a roll here, so you might not get out of here tonight.
Uh-oh. Now she can fix the bird.
So you will notice a difference. That's what I can tell you. When you're using the higher mind, you start to figure things out that you have no business knowing how to figure out. And it's not the same as tuning into your guides or your angel and asking a question and getting an answer. It's different.
What about when you just know something and you have no idea how you got that information? Is that the higher mind?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. It could be your angel's been screaming it in your ear for 6 weeks and you finally got it. It could be some other spirit guide. It could be you were in a right state of a meditative mind and you put out a query without even realizing it and the answer comes back. And it could just be your higher mind assessing data that your lower body and lower mind aren't aware of, which is one of the whole points of using your higher mind, is they have more sensory, each of us have more sensory data coming into our higher mind and our higher bodies than can be processed by the sensors of our physical body. Human form is evolving. Come back in 10,000 years, if the planet's still here, and we're going to be very different. And it can happen quickly. It can 1 to 2 generations, we can be very different. And so the new forms are available in the higher planes before they manifest physically. So some of the work that we do here affects future generations several ways. One of them is it just puts something out into the collective consciousness, and it's sort of like when everybody's born, you get a download of what's in the collective consciousness, good and bad, I might add. So that's how these 3-year-olds who don't even know how to read can pick up a remote control and program your VCR.
Or hacking your
Without,
computer.
yeah, without ever reading a manual. First time they see it, they just walk over and grab it. Oh, ta 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 ta, right?
I saw a kid do
I've
that
seen kids
with
do
the
that
iPhone.
at like 4 years old or younger. I haven't seen them younger than that, but about 4 or 5 is the age where I've actually witnessed them doing that.
I saw a little kid in a stroller doing that. Mom.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, it was a trip.
Wasn't it something like the mom was struggling, the
Yeah.
kid grabbed it out of her hand and
Yeah.
did it and handed
Yeah.
it back?
Yeah.
That would be hilarious to see.
My mouth was wide open, and the mother goes, "Yeah, right."
So there's a lot of ways it could be coming in, but athletes have a term that we call being in the zone, right? Physically you're there, mentally you're there, emotionally there, everything's integrated, you're flowing, In the Jordan novels, that's when he's the flame, right?
Yeah, it's a Zen moment.
It's
There's
a
another
Zen
thing.
moment, right? So today my knee was hurting, so I was outside trying to do some martial arts. I was not in the zone. It wasn't fully integrated today. Yeah, it looked kind of sort of like I wanted it to, but it wasn't great because I was not integrated. But that being in the zone moment, if you can imagine extending that into your etheric body, feeling and sensing your etheric body, sensing your astral body, and then holding a question or the problem you're trying to solve or the task you're trying to do, and you're pulling in that, and so it's like the diffused vision of the dreamer's stare. It's like you get in that, what we call in the Toltec lingo, the place of power. You've drained all attention, you've everything out, and you're there, and you've turned on your higher bodies, and now you start working on a problem, and the answers become obvious. The writer might call this, or an artist, the muse. Right? The muse is always there.
So when
But
you
are you listening?
so when you hit the deep well, like in art, you're
Yeah.
actually tapped into a higher mind.
Well, probably, yeah. And from your descriptions of how you're working, yeah, you're in your astral mind, the way you've been working. And your work shows it. Now, you had a question.
I was just gonna say one differentiation, and you started to allude to this towards the end of your examples a few minutes ago, but it's just the separation of identifying with the ego self, the human biological machine who's going through its little, routines, even if it's making dinner or whatever, and identifying with your essence, your higher self, so there, or the watcher, or however you want to look at that, and you start seeing yourself doing these things,
Right.
and then you can better guide yourself. So at that point, there's been a separation in consciousness from the being, it seems.
Well, yeah, what you've done, I might describe in terms other than a separation of consciousness. What you've done is you've pulled in your higher consciousness into, you've loaded it into the RAM, if you know the computer term.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your hard drive, you've got the cloud, then you've got the machine memory when you first boot up, but then you load things into the RAM. Think of the RAM as your big worktop desk area, right? But only this part right here in front of you is what you can see and use. But all this other stuff on the table is in the RAM. You can do this. You don't have to walk over to the file cabinet and get it out and bring it back. It's here. It's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you've turned on and pulled in your higher minds. That includes vision and sensory information. It includes processing information. It includes processing capabilities that our physical mind is not yet wired for. Okay? We don't have neural circuits that do some of these things. If we had a culture that supported the optimal development of each infant that's born. You're born with an infinite amount of neural connections, and a lot of learning is pruning away the ones you don't need and accentuating the ones you use all the time. And after a certain age, it kind of gets set, and you come back 20, 30, 40 years later and you want to add to that mix, it can be done. You can create new neural pathways. Your nerve cells in the brain will grow new dendrites and they'll seek out other, and you create new things, but it takes a lot more repetition than when you're a kid. So part of why we don't have the neural pathways is we pruned them out during the cultural development process. And part of it is we never had them. Those features have not yet been pulled into the human biological machine and our DNA because we're still evolving. Life is evolving. The universe is evolving. We haven't gotten our machines up to be able to interface fully with our eternal essence. The universe and our essence are a 19-dimensional phenomenon. And our physical biological machine is a 4-dimensional phenomenon. And you can't take a 19-pin connector, like the ones that go in the back of your computer, and then plug it into a 4-pin socket. Right? They don't fit. You're like, damn, it just won't go, right? You don't line up. So part of our job, generation by generation, is to evolve the physical form so each generation can do more. I mean, just look what we were talking about with the little kids, right? They don't have to learn that stuff. They know it. Somebody put it in the collective consciousness. Enough people put it in the collective consciousness, and enough people are drawing on the collective consciousness that it's there for the taking. And the people who are being born right now are getting that download. So, you want that same download of what they know? You have to go out and deliberately pull it in. It's not part of the birthing process. Or you have to get in line and come back for a new incarnation. But you've already got an incarnation, right? So use it.
An incarnation is a terrible thing to waste.
That's the t-shirt I'm making. An incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. So this whole concept, we have sensory abilities, we have processing abilities, we have memory, we have access. Learning to navigate and map the higher planes is important, because if you want answers, just go up to the Akashic record and look. Why not? You both know how to do it. I've taught that, and you got it taught earlier. We do it. So that's kind of what I was alluding to when I was saying the devil is in the details. Let me check my notes here. The other thing that we can do, or an other thing I do, not the only other thing we can do, with our higher bodies and our higher minds, is we can use them as a resonating antenna. To put out a signal of, here's what we require to do our job. This is kind of how synchronicities happen.
So we could tap into the collective information or whatever that we want.
Right, so the concept of the synchronicity, remember the Celestine prophecy movie, right, is these strange, impossible coincidences that keep happening to guide you on a path. Your holy guardian angel goes to a lot of trouble sometimes to line up these synchronicities to try and get your attention. And if you pay attention, you go, oh, over here, oh, over there, and you get the data you need, you meet the people you're supposed to meet, and you do whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. Later on, in Redfield's later books, and I like Redfield's books on the Celestine Prophecy series because it's very Toltec. It was set in Peru, which is, exactly the heart of Toltec country. Bit of an understatement. But the principles are the same. And so his later books, they're the first book, the Celestine Prophecy, they talk about the 9 insight. And at the end of the movie, they say, oh, there's a 10th insight. So then he has a book called the 10th insight, and then the 11th, and then the 12th. And in either the 10th or 11th, one of the concepts is it's not just pay attention to to the synchronicities. He basically takes all of the first 9 and spirals them up to a higher level of performance where you deliberately create and cause to occur the synchronicities you need based on your intent. You've got to have your intent. Not be inattent, unless that's your intent. But hold an intent.
He's a poet and don't know it.
Oh, I know it.
Oh, he's on a roll.
But are you paying attention?
Yes.
Okay.
With intention and attention.
Okay. So you attract the information you need. You attract the situations you need to accomplish your true will. That's the mechanism of action of synchronicity, is resonance at the higher planes, resonance between your higher mind, your higher bodies, and the higher bodies and higher minds of other beings. One of the things related to this I wanted to just mention, I've talked about it a little in the past, is the importance of your language and what we call a lot conscious languaging. So there's an example of this is you should never use the words, I need something. Do you know why?
Just you create a need.
The concept of you need something is you're telling the universe, I lack this.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, I lack this, the universe has an obligation of matching your frequency. And so you say, I lack this, and the universe says, oh yeah, you lack that. Great, my job's done. Now, change the word need to the word require. I require this to do my job. See the total difference. You're putting out
Specifications.
a very different specification, a very different frequency to the universe. And you says, holy moly, she requires that, but she doesn't have it. I better get it for her.
It's like a demand.
Yeah. It's a demand. And even the scriptures, God says, whatever you need me to do, command ye me. I don't have the chapter and verse memorized. But it's in the Bible. Where's the Holy Bible? Right up there. Command ye me. It's in the New Testament someplace. Command ye me. So it's a command, it's a demand, I like the word requirement.
Authoritative prayer.
Authoritative prayer. And the key is your demands, your requirements should be in alignment with your intents, which are as close as you can make them in alignment with your true will. You should have, therefore, a good reason for demanding what you're demanding of the universe. And so the conscious use of languaging, there's an old quote, and I don't recall who said it first. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Because as soon as you tell yourself, I can't do that, you've stopped trying.
Yeah.
You've just limited yourself. So stop it. Just stop it. What was this other quote I have? Ah, I like this. I pulled this out of one of my books. If you don't run your own subconscious mind for yourself, someone else will run it for you. Think about it. Who's running your subconscious mind?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the friends you didn't like as a child? Class bully? Is it what your parents said? Is it what the evil stepmother said?
Morals and dogma.
Dogma. See, I like Albert Pike's book. It's like this fat, and every chapter is full of pearls. Problem is, each pearl in every chapter is surrounded by hundreds of pages of utter garbage. And they're not highlighted, so, oh, here's the pearl, right? You got to read all the other garbage. He's one of those authors whose writing style I describe as why say in 100 words what could more easily be said in 1,000.
You need a red book for him.
Say that
A
again?
red book, like the Red Book Bible.
Oh, there is one for Morals and Dogma. Morals and Dogma is the name of a book by a Mason named Albert Pike. And there's the version, the equivalent of the Red Book is called Clausen's Commentary on Morals and Dogma, where it takes this much and condenses it down to this much. And it's a lot better. But I still go back and check on a lot of things. But yeah, why say in 100 words what could more easily be said in 1,000, and then I don't have to worry about editing and writing a little tighter and getting concise and down to the core message, because I'm just rambling for thousands of pages because nobody edited my work.
Isn't some of it though what I call Victorian apologetics, where they're like jumping through all sorts of hoops to legitimize what they're saying?
No.
And thus it must be so because of this, that, and the other, and any common man would know and understand this.
Pike predated the Victorian
Yeah.
era. So he doesn't really have those kind of apologetics, in my opinion.
Well, it's,
And Aaron might have a better opinion on that. But no, he was just rambling about everything he'd ever thought of a spiritual nature and threw it out there, and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't, and he's just a poor writer. He's a great visionary and a poor writer. Because it's all there, the good stuff's there, but you gotta spend some time filtering, let me tell you. Let me tell you. So, who's running your subconscious? That's a question you could ask yourself.
I had let me put this on me. Okay, there we go. We attended a conference a couple years ago where there was a lot of motivational speakers and different things, and this one lady actually had gone through some personality disorders because of abuses as a child, and as she started to recollect different parts of it. And it was funny because you were talking about synchronicities, and I had there was like, what was there, like six lectures every hour.
Yeah.
So you had to really pick which lectures you wanted to go to and which ones were important to you. And I had stopped by this woman's booth, and I had absolutely no intention of going to her lecture. but somehow I got in the wrong room and I'm sitting there and she saw me and she was excited I was there and I was like, I couldn't walk out. So I sat through her lecture and on one hand it was kind of scary because she was talking basically about mastering her personality disorder and using it for her own benefit. So one of the things that you said earlier on in this discussion triggered me and I'm like, oh, where did this idea come from? Where did this understanding come from? And it actually came from this woman's lecture, that as she started to learn about her different personalities, that she would give them tasks to do. And so on one level, like she had one personality that was actually better at, let's say, doing business and that kind of thing. And so when she needed to do business planning or whatever it was, she would set the task to this one personality that they were supposed to be working on.
So she gave assignments.
She gave assignments to her multiple personalities.
That's brilliant.
And so it kind of, I wondered where you were going with some of the stuff about the energy, different energy bodies. But in one way, you know, we want to be having all of these energies working for a single purpose.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, you know, I do find sometimes that there's almost like gaps in my memory, and it's like, well, I don't remember doing this, but I have a journal entry in here, and it's in the wrong notebook. It's not the one that I consciously use, so I don't know who wrote in that, you know. So
You don't know who wrote in that journal in your handwriting.
Right, in that notebook.
I know, it's a trip.
You know, I will have that same experience, but usually it's not what I wrote this morning that I don't remember in writing. It's what I wrote like years ago. I was just looking at some 4 or 5-year-old journals and I came across this beautiful summary of a dream. I'm like, it's my writing. Man, I don't remember this at all. But
Or
that's why we write them in the journal.
Or you
Because
read
unless
it,
you're like Aaron with a photographic memory,
or you read that and you go, I wrote that, which
Right.
I've done. And I
or
go,
yeah, this is brilliant. I did. You know. But yeah, I don't have Aaron's photographic memory, so I have to slave to remember stuff. But I have tricks. I've learned how to cheat. I've learned how to use my consciousness, and I've learned how to cheat, and I've learned how to reprogram my mind to remember what I need to remember. But that's not the same as a photographic memory. It's just better map making skills.
Aaron had a comment probably about Pike's work.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
He says, esoterica is the way entire chapters of pointless wordiness with a secret truth you stumble upon just about the time you start drooling on yourself trying to read through it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's every chapter, and the book that will hopefully be out within a month or two that I've written is a little like that, where in every little section I've got something that might just be one line or one small sentence, but I'm trying to smuggle some things somewhere. But yeah, that's like it, and you get that one truth, but it's like
You gotta want it bad.
you gotta want it bad. You gotta sit there and plow through the pointless stuff, and that's actually a really good attention exercise. Is reading Albert Pike. Let me tell you.
You don't think he did any of it intentionally, did he? To smuggle and hide secret stuff?
No, no, he was being blatant.
No.
You know, at the time there was never any expectation that what he was writing would be read by anybody other than Masons. So the horse is out of the barn though, because anybody who wants a copy of Morals and Dogma can probably pick one up at any used bookstore for $5 or less. But yeah, it's all about masonry, higher level masonry, and not everything in that book is correct on all his interpretations of symbolism and things, but every chapter has pearls. So, but yeah, good description. I like the drooling on yourself and oh yeah, there's yeah. But yeah, So that's kind of what I'm inviting you all to do, is learn to pay attention to those details, to up spiral the frequency at which you provide that self check. What am I thinking about and why? What am I doing and why, as you've added in? And constantly. And that implies that there's something that you've agreed with yourself to do that you are supposed to be doing. It's not externally imposed, it's internally imposed.
I would just say too that, because we're not robots and we can't be consciously doing something all the time, that the part of this is also to give yourself permission to take a break, in which case you are still consciously doing something.
Right.
Still,
if it is your intent to rest, I said this a week or two ago, then go rest. When I'm not being productive because we're still stuck in these physical biological machines, right? So lactic acid builds up and the brain's neurotransmitters were out. The oxygen circulation needs to be stimulated. So your body needs rest periodically. So if it's time for let your body rest, then go rest. Don't try to soldier on and muscle through it, right? 3 in the afternoon, just go take a half-hour nap, whatever it is. That becomes your intent, is to rejuvenate. So like in Star Trek Voyager, when they really got heavily into learning about the Borg have these little chambers where they go stand in and they plug in and they get their batteries recharged and they rejuvenate.
I want a Borg chamber.
No, you don't. Because the way you get a Borg chamber is you give up all individuality.
Oh, then I don't want a Borg chamber.
No, you don't. Because I've already taught you how to rejuvenate. So you just need to do it. But that's the extent. So make that your intent. My intent is I'm going to rest. Turn everything off, close the computer, just go rest. When you're hungry and the thoughts of food keep interfering because your biological machine is saying, yo dude, we're running out of fuel here. If you want to keep going, you got to put some food in here. Then stop your work and go eat. Make eating a ritual. Go sit down at your table and eat. Don't try to watch TV and play with the kids and be on the computer and do your crossword puzzle all at the same time as you're eating. Eat with an intent. Prepare your food with the intent. Know your intent, and every moment know if you're meeting it. Was that another question?
I was just going to suggest this, you said.
Oh, okay. We're on the same wavelength. Look at that. Any other comments or questions from online?
You were going to challenge them with questions.
I'll say that again.
I thought you were going to challenge your audience with questions.
About what?
To have them, to get them to you.
Oh, I didn't do that this week. See, there's an intent I didn't follow through on. So, what I'll tell you is for next week, as we kind of review this tonal material, I want to entertain your questions. I would like you all to engage more. Not for my benefit so much, but your benefit. Answers aren't as good as good questions. Right? So over the course of this next week, I want you to formulate questions about this material and email them to me. And this week, as I get these, I'll prepare using your questions as the core of what we talk about next week. So if you're a formal student of mine, you are required to send me at least one question.
Thank you.
Everybody else, you're not required to, but you are invited to, because that's how you're going to learn. Control loops, hysteresis, frequent asking yourself the question, what am I thinking and why? That's your take-home message today.
So Erin has a question.
Ah, yay, Aaron.
The goal, it seems, of some spiritual practices follows along the line of singularity, one mind. I fear losing my individuality, as you mentioned.
Well, don't do it. Don't lose your mind. Aaron, did you read the original Asimov Foundation series? It used to be called the Foundation Trilogy, and then later on he added more books the same way that Herbert added books, and then Herbert's son has taken it over and added books to the Dune trilogy. But one of the big questions is that there's all these interstellar galactic things going on to move humanity into a direction of one mind. The key point to understand is we already are one mind. If you imagine the membrane and the one hand coming out or underwater, you put your hand underwater and then you come up with the surface and all the little fingers wiggling around seem individual, but when you look under the water, it's all connected, right? So we're all connected to the mind of God. God already is one mind. We're not trying to become that. And we've been sent down here as individuals for reasons because we need multiple perspectives. We're here to do things that no one else can do. Each of us are here to do something no one else can do. So the one mind it's sort of like the when I talked about in athletics, when you're in the zone and everything's working well. That can happen for an individual athlete. Then, when you win as a team, let's say it's football, 11 people, and each one is individually in the zone, but the teammates are all on the same wavelength. You know, the play starts breaking down, the blocking starts breaking down, but the quarterback knows without looking what the receiver is going to do to change the pattern, and he throws to a place that he can't even see because he knows ahead of time that's where the receiver is going to go. And when the play breaks down, the receiver goes there because he knows that the quarterback's going to throw the ball, touchdown, right? You know, I've seen lots of plays like that, and you talk to them after they knew they were in that zone. So there's a synergy that can happen with a group of people. And in a Toltec party, that's what we're working for. It's that well-oiled machine concept of we're interface. There is a group consciousness that forms in any group that spends a lot of time and does a lot of work together. So it can happen on an athletic team. It can happen in a spiritual group. It can happen in companies where people are. It can happen in the collaboration when you had good projects in the theater world. If you probably remember the good ones, and then you remember the a-hole directors, and nothing was synergistic. In aerospace, I had projects where everybody was cooperating, got along. We were all in the zone, did great things. Then we have other projects that are run by idiots, and the customer is an a-hole, and nobody wants to be there. So You want those synergistic efforts, but those synergistic efforts don't require you to give up your individuality. Because if everybody's all the same, then you lose the benefit of diversity and that synchronistic working together, because it's not just 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 can equal 10 or 100 or more. But you need those individuals bringing different skills, different points of view, different experience, and you literally are creating at the higher planes, a group mind that we all tap into. So next weekend is the Super Bowl, they tell me. I don't remember who's in it. But the team that wins is usually the team that comes closest to that ideal group mind that's in the zone together. There was a team this year I read about that they finished the regular season with the best record in all of football. They were the favorites to win it all. They lost their first game in the playoffs to the team that had the worst record in the playoffs. They did not have that in the zone synergy. So, I share your opinion, Aaron, that I'm not giving up my individuality for anybody, but I strive and revel when we can get into those group mind moments, because that's where the miraculous things start to happen. And that, now imagine you get a team of 11 guys, or a Toltec party of a dozen or 2 dozen. Now imagine a whole continent full of people synergizing that way. Then you're onto something. That's potential. Any other online comments? Okay, we're going to stop here then. Do good. Avoid evil, everybody.